Hey Revolutionaries, I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with Dr. Angela Mulrooney, where we're talking about how you can become an arsonist. Yes, an arsonist. Well, look, it's nothing illegal, but it's about you becoming the arsonist and burning down whatever is no longer serving you in your own life. Yes, just burning it down and unleashing your personal influence. So Angela's got an incredible story. I can't wait for everyone here to listen to it, about how she was able to pivot out of a traditional career that was, credentialed, a lot of degrees, a lot of effort that went into it, and something happened in her life that basically took that career away from her. So she was forced to pivot, and she got into building other types of businesses. And honestly, throughout the episode, you'll hear her. There was so many times that she burned down whatever she was doing and had to reinvent herself that I was like exhausted by the end. I was like, okay, wait a second. And then this happened, and then you did it, and then you did this again. She's like, wait, I have another reinvention. I'm like, oh my God. Anyways, it was great to get to know her and just listen to her experience and see how she approaches things. And I think it's most interesting for people listening out there that are maybe mid-career, that have a level of gravitas or expertise and are thinking, yeah, I'd love to pivot or do something different, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what business I would start, etc. Well, this is what she helps people with. So please listen to the episode, and of course, share it with someone that you think could benefit from it, if you're so inclined. But before we get there real quick, I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone. I'm still sort of celebrating a little bit on the high of the last episode of releasing 100 episodes, celebrating the release of 100 JJRR episodes. So thanks for people that gave me some feedback and said congrats and keep going and all those kinds of things. I really appreciate it. It was fun to put that solo episode together, even though it was a little bit of a challenge to my mind, I guess. For those of you who have listened to the episode, you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, speaking of showing your love and congrats for the 100 episodes, and if you want to keep the podcast rolling, and since it's the season of giving, I thought I'd tell you guys about my Linktree one more time. So if you're interested in showing your love of the podcast and celebrating these 100 episodes so far, go to linktree.com, or actually it's Linktree. Let me spell it: linktr.ee/JimJim99. So just like it sounds, JIM99. So it's Linktree/JimJim99. If you go there, you'll see all my links. That's an easy place to find them all. And the first one there says, show your love and buy me a coffee. So all I got to do is click on there, and it's goes to this site, which is Ko-Fi, and it's a place where you can donate, so you can show your love for the show. It's the giving season, so maybe you'll be inspired, and you'll see some other people. I think they list some other people that have donated. There's a little blurb about me that I had to put on there, and a funny picture of me with a tiger. Yeah, it's from Thailand. So funny story about this picture was, I went to go see these tigers because tigers is an icon of Thailand when I was over. This was in Phuket, I believe, and I was scared to death when this picture was being taken, and I didn't know what to do, and there's these Thai guys that don't speak very good English telling me, no, go pet the tiger, go pet the tiger. I'm like, no, I don't. Are you sure, guys? Anyways, sitting down there saying, move closer, because they wanted to take this picture. And right when I moved in, and they say, pet him, the tiger turned and started kind of like growling and opening his mouth very wide. And I guess it just freaked me out a little bit. I started to growl back at him because I didn't want to be afraid. Anyways, that's the picture if you want to go to the Ko-Fi page. But yeah, go to Linktree and click on the first link, and you can buy me a coffee. That would be cool. Other than that, we have the other links on there to, if you want to download the priming guide, join the email list, click on that link, and it's got the link to celebrating 100 episodes, the last episode I released. So if you haven't listened to that yet, please do. Okay, that's all I got for now. Can't wait for you to check out what Angela's been up to. So let's get to the episode right now.
Welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim.
Hey everybody, hey, this is Jim. Welcome to the latest episode of Jim's Reinvention Revolution, number 101. And I'm talking today with Dr. Angela Mulrooney, and we're talking about how to be the arsonist in your personal life and burn down whatever's no longer serving you, but also in the kind of goal of unleashing your influence. So, Dr. Angela, welcome to the Reinvention Revolution.
Thanks for having me, Jim. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being here, and thanks. I'm glad we finally got connected because we were trying to set this up for a while. Just how things happen. I was traveling and whatever, and I was just most recently down in Costa Rica, and so I wanted to mention that because I just want to see where I want to talk about. You're sitting in Nicaragua, okay, which is close to Costa Rica, and that was a new part of the world for me when I went down there. So I wanted to open up this region of the world, see what Central America is all about. Before we get into it, tell people how many years you've been in Nicaragua now and what it's like down there.
I've been here almost 2 years, and actually at the end of the month, I'm moving back to Canada for a little while. But
okay.
It has, every day kind of is an adventure. Like this morning, I jackknifed.
Oh, you did?
And ended up 90 degrees from where I should have been pointing on the clay road that I have to drive in the jungle to get to town. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
It was, I had mud under my armpit when I got on my mastermind. I was like, oh, sorry about that.
Wow. So it's just an artifact of the roads. Is Nicaragua similar to Costa Rica in terms of being a rainforest? Is it very lush there?
It is. And where I live, the jungle, we have a bit more rain in that specific area compared to town. And the part of the road that I have to drive is literally made of clay. So when it rains, it's just a slick. And because the main road has like massive ruts and like 2 foot down ruts, we have to drive on the side, which is 45-degree angle. And last week I felt the car start to tip.
Oh my gosh.
I just pulled hard the other way. I'm like, if I just put my weight over here, hopefully we won't tip.
Yeah, right.
So,
wow, it's like going whitewater rafting or something. It's like they're always like lean into the rock, not away from it, so you don't flip over. Oh, that's crazy. Well, okay, so it sounds similar a little bit to Costa Rica. Yeah, that was one of the challenges down there is just navigating the roads because you never know whether they're washed out or not, or if, yes, something funky has happened, or some animals are blocking the road. Who knows? What's going on down there. But, anyways, I had fun. It was fun to kind of see that part of the world and understand. So, for people listening out there, Costa Rica is kind of in the center between North and South America. Nicaragua is north of Costa Rica, so it's a little bit closer north there. But, anyways, super fun. And we'll get into how you ended up in Nicaragua here in a second. But before we get into it, I wanted to ask you a question about this arsonist imagery. Okay. That's one of the things that attracted me to you because, this is all about reinvention here. And that's kind of a very visceral way to think about when you need to change or maybe want to change or being forced to change. Sometimes it's better just to rip the Band-Aid off and go for it, rather than be like, well, I'll do that, slowly, I'll try this, but when you're really forced to kind of burn the bridges and not look back, I think that can be beneficial. But why or how did you come up with this concept or this term?
Well, the term came up from actually one of my clients because she actually wrote me a testimonial that said, warning, Dr. Mulrooney will not tell you what you want to hear, and it might just change your life. And okay. What had happened was she has been on this endeavor, and she was actually in dentistry, which is my original background as well. And she was just like, I hate it. Like every time I think about it, I want to puke. I want to pursue my acting career instead of doing this dentistry thing. And I was the first person who said, why aren't you doing that then?
Right.
Like this thing that you hate is dragging you down. It's holding you to a life that you don't want to be in anymore. Once you burn that down, you're released fully into where you want to go. And it's funny because she spent like 5 days in bed feeling very, very ill.
Oh, wow.
About what I had told her and like churning over things. And she came out and was like, yeah, you're right. Someone else can take over this project. I don't need to do this. I want to move into my new life. And she's already got herself a lead in a feature film.
Wow. Okay.
And
Interesting.
moving forward with her career. But it wouldn't have happened if she was still spending so much energy tied to this life that she didn't want to be part of. And that's how I ended up really niching myself into personal branding. Was over and over. I've had people come to me who are like at this crossroads, and everyone is shooting all over them saying, you know, you should stay in this because you've invested so much time, you're masterful and you have expertise in this. And they're going, but I don't want to. I actually want to go over here.
Right.
And I'm the person who hands them the map and says, well, do you want to do it? Let's burn it down. And so that has been a theme for quite a long time. And now when I run my masterminds, everyone who comes into it is going through a pivot. But in 90 days, we pivot them while burning down what they need to burn down, getting them in the right direction, giving them business in a box by the end of those 90 days so that they are making money. So they're not having people say, well, you just totally ruined your life, you ruined your reputation. And
right.
Instead, they're actually increasing their reputation. They're building a brand, they're building a business that is way more profitable than what they were doing before, that everyone told them they should keep doing.
Right. Okay. All right. So I love this. I love this background. Okay, because this speaks a lot to me, and I know it speaks to people that are thinking about doing something different, maybe pondering it for a while. That's probably why they're likely listening to the podcast. They, fancy themselves or imagining and dreaming somewhere at night, like, why can't I do something different? Why can't I do this, or why can't I pivot or live a different lifestyle? And I think that's what it's all about. It all comes back to kind of fear and sort of, the social conditioning and, wherever you're living. That's why I like traveling so much. It of course, you get the benefits of traveling and seeing a different culture and all that kinds of things, but it keeps you out of being so inside your patterns. You know what I mean? Inside your local nuclear family or your group of friends, and it's like you realize, like, oh wait, that's just what we do over there. But but if I wanted to do something different, there's tons of people that are doing this other thing over here. And it sort of reminds you of that. Okay, so let's talk about this influence part. So this is another part of your actual business that you're doing now, unleashing influence. Let's talk about this first, because if you decide to burn something down, how do you build around it, or why would you do it? Like, what's the payoff on the other end if you wanted to pivot into something new, and how do you actually help people do that?
So a lot of the people that come to me have been in corporate for a long time. They're in C-suite positions, or they have been in a VP executive kind of position, and most of my clients are mid-50s and later, and they've realized, I have given the pound of flesh to my industry.
Right.
I've given my pound of flesh to this corporation, and now I want to leave my legacy. I want to leave my mark. And they're not sure how to do that. So they come to me with all these different ways that they can be helping the world. And what I do is what I call a crack you open session. So I crack them open. I take a look at their soul. I take a look at all these talents that they could possibly use, and I put them together in a way that's easy for the market to understand. I give them a title for their industry, like something like the Women in Tech Accelerator. So they have stuck their flag in the ground and said, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing in the industry. We make sure all their content is on point with what they're actually doing with that package, so that they are very clear in the marketplace. So it's not so scary, because what happens with most people, and I've had people come to me a year after they first talked to me who didn't decide to work with me. Right. And in a year, they built out all these amazing programs and they're so excited about it. And I asked them, how many sales have you got? None.
It's crickets. Yeah.
And I'm like, you've put in a year of work building all these things that you think are amazing, and you've gotten $0 back from that. Do we see a disconnect here? Right? And when you're trying to figure it out on your own and not following someone else's roadmap, you're making all the mistakes that you don't need to be making if you actually work with someone who has been there and done that, especially if they've been there and done that multiple times. They've already worked out the kinks. They know what works over and over again for their clients, and it makes it so much easier to go through that pivot if you aren't trying to figure it out yourself. And with the age category that I work with, people don't have time to flounder, right? They have a reputation that they're very proud of, that they do not want to tarnish in the marketplace. So they don't want to be stumbling publicly. And when you're building a personal brand, you are very publicly out there building your brand. So you don't want to be throwing spaghetti against the wall, confusing the market as to what the heck you're doing, and people going, are you sure you should have left that really cushy corporate job to actually do this? Because it looks like it's not working out so well. So it helps them to actually pivot with confidence, so that they do get on the right path quickly. But most people, they either wish that they could pivot, or they pivot very ungracefully and publicly, and then eventually scare themselves back to their corporate position.
Right. Well, I think that's a real common experience. Oh my gosh, I'm listening to it. Like, I'm thinking about myself. If I rewind my mind, to 15 years ago, when I was more of a corporate-minded thinker, I'd be like scared to death. What am I doing? I'm not sure I have I think a lot of people think about this. I'm not sure I have the skills to even monetize, like what business would I run or whatever it is. Like, is that something you actually help people with too? Like you said, you kind of work on their niche and whatever. But I think that's a sticking point with some people that I know I'd love to do something different, but I haven't been trained to do something different.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of the people I'm working with are first-time entrepreneurs. So they know that they can make a difference. They want to leave that legacy, and they're not sure how to do it. So it's whether they build a product or they build a service. Most of them actually end up building masterminds similar to what I run.
Okay.
And so they're taking people from their industry, helping them with their roadmap to success, and pulling them forward into the future in a faster way. And for a lot of them, that's the easiest way to build a profitable company, is not building something where you have 15,000 employees. It's actually becoming pretty much a solopreneur with a virtual assistant half-time or maybe quarter-time to help them to run this thing. But what they're doing is taking all that beautiful experience and expertise and knowledge that they have in their head, and they're sharing it with the world. And it's highly valuable. There's lots of people who, even the clients that I have, I'm like, what would you have liked to have known 15, 20, 30 years ago that you know now, that you can reach back in your industry and pull people forward so they don't have to go through all those stumbling blocks, and they can actually advance their careers faster, or they can create their own business similar to what they're trying to create in their industry.
Right. I like that. Well, yeah, I mean, that's certainly that's a service that's needed that I think someone, again, I've kind of lived half lives. My first half of my life or career was really inside the corporate world. The second half has been outside of it. So I see both ways, but it would be super valuable, I think, just for someone to explore, to see what the possibilities would be for themselves if they're in that zone. It's like, yeah, I'm here. I could put in my last 15 years or whatever and just get the gold watch, or I could decide to do something different, because you're in that position of maybe it's a little bit less risky. Do you work with other people that are maybe, mid-career, that maybe it's a little bit higher risk for them? Maybe they have small kids and they have that corporate job, but they're still yearning to do something different?
Yes, as long as they have experience and expertise. So say someone is coming fresh out of university, I'm probably not the person to help them, because they don't have that street cred. Right? They haven't put in the hours, they don't have the reps. But if someone has, like, I'm 42 and I'm helping people significantly older than me, but I have put in the reps. I have built brand after brand after brand. So I have that reputation. So there can be younger people who can be in that thought leadership position, who can help pull people forward if they have done something that is unique or outside the box earlier on, or if they have like a narrowed expertise that most people don't have. They can come younger in their career and be able to share that with people as well. But you have to have something that is valuable for the world to buy, an experience and expertise that is valuable for people to buy. And the people that I work with are selling high ticket programs. So they're not coming in at like $50 an hour to help people. They're selling a knowledge package to help move people forward, so that they're not only replacing their corporate income, they're scaling it significantly and working fewer hours, which is part of the reason people come to me, is they're like, I don't want to work the 100 hours a week, but I want my income to go up with less stress as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's, of course, I mean, that's what's so interesting about the world we live in now. At the internet, we have access, we can all discover each other and really provide massive value and get massive value in return. So that's the cool thing. And define the lifestyle that goes with it. Like, you've been in Nicaragua for 2 years. That's amazing. Okay, so now that we understand what's going on with Unleash Your Influence, I want to rewind a little bit and figure out how you got here, because you have such an interesting story of, kind of needing to burn down some of the things in your life and really rethink what you were doing. So maybe we can start out with why, when I introduced you, that you have a doctor in front of your name. What are you a doctor of? I think this might be surprising to some people, to a lot of people, I think.
So I'm a doctor of dental medicine, which really means I'm a dentist. So that was my original career path. You know, when I was 2, for some reason, I started really liking people's teeth and started being able to convince adults to lay down on the carpet and let me sit on their chest while I fiddled around in their mouth. So
wait, you did this as a kid? Wait, you did this as a kid? Is that what you're describing?
It's 2 years old.
Oh my God, that's
I
funny.
hadn't been to the dentist. Like, I don't even think you saw a movie about dentistry or teeth or anything, but somehow you got fascinated with teeth.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, cool.
So that carried on, graduated from dental school at 24, got launched out into the world as a dentist, worked as an associate mostly for the first 4.5 years because I was really shy. And so I actually decided to work with kids because I could just tell them stories. I didn't have to come up with spontaneous conversation. I would just give the parents, a breakdown of what had happened, and then they were on their way. So that was my way of working around my shyness until I bought a broken down practice in the worst part of town from a 78-year-old dentist, and I was 28.
Oh, wow. So he's retiring and gotcha.
Yeah, 5-decade generation gap. So super
wild.
old school versus new school, right? And he was this boisterous, very, very out there human being. And then there was me, who was this shy little wallflower who could barely look for patients in the eye.
Right.
And that was one of the first acts of arson that I had to do, was I had to burn down my shyness, or at least burn it down a little bit so that I could get these patients on board. They could see that I was committed to dentistry. Like when I talked about teeth, they're like, I've never seen someone so passionate about teeth. But I love teeth, but I didn't have that human connection piece because I was so in my head that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't perfect enough. And so I was I was measuring everything that was coming out of my mouth. And eventually I had to let some of that go so that I could connect with these people because they were so connected to him.
Right.
And they had been with him, a lot of them, for 30 plus years. So I had some pretty big boots to fill on the character side of things. My dentistry was great, but my character side, I had to work on bringing my personality out. So that carried on. I ended up winning the patients over, increased the production of the practice by 73% in the first year. And then a couple of years later, when I had everything where I wanted it, a great team, I had amazing patients, I was doing the dentistry I loved, and then my hand stopped working properly. So I ended up actually mid-procedure, my hand stopped working and I had to finish up with my left hand.
Mid-procedure? Wow. Okay, what was the procedure? What were you, was it like filling a cavity or like something really stressful? Like...
It was invasive surgery. My patient was completely flapped open. I could see the bone. I had done some puncturing.
Yikes.
And luckily it happened right before I had to suture her back together. And my left hand is pretty dexterous, and I was using what are called Gore-Tex sutures. They're really elasticy, so they're pretty forgiving. They don't snap if you pull them too hard. So I took my assistant aside and said, okay, the problem I've been having with my hand? Well, it's not working at all. So you're going to move my right hand, and you're just going to listen to what I'm saying. You're going to just catch things as I put them through. We got to get the patient put back together because she was partially sedated as well. Right. So we were running out of time to get her put back together when this happened. And unfortunately, that was the last day I got to practice dentistry.
Wow, that's pretty intense. I assume hopefully everything went well with the patient. You got him closed up and...
Yeah, her case turned out amazing. Okay. And we went off, she was put back together, and in my brain I was calculating, like, who can I call that's nearby who can come and suture her up before the sedation runs out if we can't put her back together? Right. So luckily I didn't have to call on a friend, and everything turned out just fine. But yeah, it was one of those moments where I felt my life, the whole world shifted, and I knew that nothing was ever going to be the same.
Yeah, you can't do this again or chance it again or whatever. So what was the is there a name to what happened to you to your body or whatever that all of a sudden you lost this skill?
Yeah, so it's called Focal Dystonia. So there's a genetic predisposition. If you overuse your manual dexterity, you end up killing your manual dexterity. So really my career killed my career because of my genetics, which I had no idea I had this problem because there's no high dexterity people in my family. So there was no way for me to know that.
Wouldn't have discovered it.
Really long career.
Right. Wow. That's pretty wild. Okay, so you discover this and you're like, what is that? Are you immediately like, depressed, and does it really kind of knock you in the gut, or how'd you react to it?
Well, I got shitted all over by everybody. Everyone's like, you should hold on to hope. You should keep going and trying to figure out what's wrong. And it took 6 months for the medical system to figure out what was wrong. I was in Canada. I ended up actually having to go down to the States to get it sorted out, because in Canada, if you have an emergency, it's great. But if you have something that's a bit weird, the specialists don't really talk to each other to figure out the case. Whereas Mayo Clinic, you have a team of specialists looking at it from all different angles. So they had it figured out in a couple of days. And at the end of my week there, they said, I'm so sorry, Dr. Mulrooney, but you need to figure out what you're going to do with the rest of your life, because you're no longer going to be a dentist.
Wow.
And I'll be honest, that was a relief. Because for 6 months, I'm getting pulled. I'm like, am I going to go back? Am I not going to be able to go back? Like, what is happening? Everyone's telling me I should hold out hope. And I'm like, I don't even want to hope anymore. Right? Hope is holding me to my past.
It's kind of holding you back. You're in like no man's land. Yeah.
Exactly. So they kind of cut the tie to my hope and freed me to be unleashed into the world to actually do something different.
Right.
I didn't really do anything different for the next 2.5 years. I ended up listening to everyone telling me that I should keep my practice, because I built this brand in the city that people knew, because I took referrals from other dentists for people who were afraid of the dentist. Most dentists don't want to handle them. So I had a skill set that was catered to people who were phobic. And
you had other dentists working with you in the practice, right? So you could have maintained and just been the business, basically the face, the business owner, etc. And obviously you have expertise to do that. But how did you think about that part? Was that something that was interesting to you, or no?
Well, I didn't have anyone working with me when I got injured.
Okay.
And then the skill set that I had, most people only had one or none of the skills that I had. So I ended up having a whole bunch of different people come in to try and fill in the skill set. So I had this revolving schedule of people who could fill in for implants, or fill in for sleep apnea, or fill in for IV sedation, or fill in for full mouth reconstruction. But I didn't have one person who had everything that I had in one package. And with phobic patients, they get attached to you because they trust you, right? And so having a different person for different parts of their procedure really didn't work well. So I ended up having to revert the clinic back to very basic, to be able to keep an associate, because the associates didn't want to deal with people who are afraid of the dentist either, because it takes a lot of work to deal with them. I love dealing with them. Most people didn't. That's why people referred me patients. So I ended up taking the clinic back to kind of what it originally was when I bought it. And every day that I walked in there, honestly, it was like someone ripped the scab off my heart, and my heart started bleeding again. Yeah. So when 2015 hit and the oil crisis was hitting Calgary, which is where my practice was, and I saw the economy go down so fast compared to when I bought it during the global financial crisis, I was like, you know what, it's time to peace out and move on with my life. So I took my practice and I fire sold it. I offered it for half of its value and got it sold, because I could see the economy was not going, my prediction was the economy was not going to recover quickly. And I was correct, even though everyone was like, you shouldn't do that. So again, people were shitting all over me, trying to give me advice. And I finally was like, you know what, my intuition is telling me to do this. I'm going to do this. So got it sold and started unleashing myself into other endeavors. And the first endeavor after that was actually building my professional dance company called Unleashed Dance Company, named after being unleashed from my dental career.
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, I was just knocking around before our conversation today, trying to see if that was still around. So I found a Twitter account for it. I found some old YouTube videos online. Is it still around? Or I couldn't find, it looks like they were old, like 4 or 5 years old or something like that.
Yeah, I sold it, and the person who bought it ended up shutting down the account. I just recently got access to all my choreographies, so I'm going to be able to put them back up.
Oh, okay.
Because we're part of them as well, and other professionals were part of it. So we've got 5 years worth of memories when the company existed that I want out there, so that they can go and find them again. So it will be coming back. So
that's so interesting. Okay, so is this something that you did like in your high school days, or did you do this as a semi-pro career on the side the whole time, or what? How do you just be like, well, I'm going to start a dance school?
So I turned pro as a dancer when I finished dental school, and I started dancing when I started university.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, there was always that level of two careers happening, very artsy and very sciencey. And so it was a natural progression, even though people in the dental industry thought I had run away to join the circus because they didn't know that I was a professional dancer. So for me, it was a natural progression to step away from dentistry and kind of get my head on straight, because there was a lot of thoughts going on.
Yeah, I could see super challenging, just the whole change of mindset, of environment, of science. Like, man, that's a real big pivot. But probably a necessary one, or one that was beneficial, right? Because it's like, well, I need to change of scenery right now.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to talk to dentists because they all knew what had happened, and they looked at me with pity, and then I would cry, and I was just so tired of crying about it that I just needed a break to move and express what I'd gone through and let the cogs start to turn in a way where I wasn't thinking. It was just happening because my brain was out of the super highly intelligent version of me and just being in the artistic part where, I could let things pass through me. And I was so thankful for that first year because it allowed me to start realizing I'd been through some really weird stuff when I owned that practice. The owner died halfway through the deal. I got sued by the team members in the first year, and it got settled for $0. But I kind of got put through hell with that practice, and like worst case scenario of everything, including losing my career. So I'm like, you know what? I've invested a ton of money in my education beyond just dental school, but acquiring all these skills that I had, and I figured there's got to be a way for me to take this and reach back and pull my industry forward. So I decided to build a coaching company called Unleashing Dentistry's Potential and start coaching dentists on how to niche into their passion in their industry so that they actually wanted to be dentists. Because a lot of dentists they hate their life. When they heard that I got injured, they're like, oh my God, I wish that was me. Like,
seriously?
That is not the answer.
Really? Wait, so no, I don't think this is maybe that unique, but I just want to hear a little bit more about this because this is interesting. Like, I think a lot of people get into their careers and they realize, it's not what they thought it was going to be, or they realize it really takes over their life or whatever. But in terms of dentist, I mean, it's more of I think the entrepreneurship part goes with dentistry a little bit more, obviously, like maybe a lawyer, like certain professional aspects of it. And so you'd think that they would have their own, a little more own autonomy. Why were they saying, man, I wish it was me? That's interesting.
It's because patients are a lot. If you have someone who's in pain or they're scared, you have no idea how many times a patient walks into a practice and says, by the way, doc, I hate dentists. And you're like, you don't even know me yet. And you're already telling me you hate me. So you've got that weird energy.
Tough. Yeah.
And with the business side of things, you're wearing so many hats because you are trying to be the operator. You're doing surgery all day long, and you're trying to run the business and know everything that's going on. Most of them are micromanaging because they don't have the right people in place, and they don't trust them because we're pretty high strung. We're really high achievers. We want everything to be awesome. Right. And so it is a lot for a lot of dentists. If they haven't taken business training, they just constantly feel like they're on this hamster wheel. And it's really quite stressful when you're trying to take care of a patient that is having a bad day. Maybe the surgery went sideways. You've got patients waiting for you. You're wondering what is happening in the business. You're hoping nothing is going wrong anywhere else aside from what's going wrong with your case. So it's a very high stress job.
That's interesting. Okay, so you created this dance. I'm getting back to our point here. So you created this dance, Unleashed dancing.
Unleashed, yeah.
Sorry. Okay, yeah. Get the name right. And that was your passion. You were trained to do that, but you're using some of the business skills, I guess, that you learned throughout your dental practice to do that. What made you think that you were I guess qualified now though to teach other dentists about what was going on? You had your own experience, but it was limited for a few years. How did you view that, or how did you have the confidence to think like, you know what, I think I know I can really help these people?
Because I had on the side coached other dentists to niche into what they were passionate about. So I had been coaching. I kind of have been coaching since I've been a teenager in lots of different areas, and I didn't even realize what I was doing was coaching.
Okay.
And so I had also done what most dentists would maybe not even achieve in their career. So I had the skill set. I had a niche practice. I didn't take insurance. People were paying me out of pocket. I was charging above fee guide because I had a specialized skill set that other people didn't have. I was getting referrals from other dentists. Like, I was doing something that was really strange in dentistry for someone my age. And it's funny because I have run into people since selling my practice, since being out of dentistry, and they're like, "You're Dr. Mulrooney?" And they're like 20, 30 years older than me. And a lot of them say, "For some reason, I thought you were this fat old lady that I was sending patients to," because back then,
wow,
people weren't checking people out. We weren't using social media to creep on people. We weren't using, like, I had a website that was #1 on Google because not many people had websites. So it was easy to gamify, game the system to actually move up with your SEO. But that wasn't what everyone else was doing. So people weren't really checking out who I was. They just knew when they got an x-ray back of their patient, the work was really good. The patient was really happy. Right. And they had gone through what they needed to get through to get back to being a normal patient.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. All right. So, I mean, that's cool because you're still kind of at a young age here, and to think you're going to help all these, experienced dentists somehow, pivot their practice or help them niche down or have this real, business acumen. That's still pretty interesting. But obviously you had the confidence to do it, and you were successful doing it. So how long did you do that for a while?
So Unleashing Dentistry's Potential, I think it was 2016, 2017 is when that company launched. And I ran it until almost a year ago, so 2021. So
so that recently. Okay. I thought it was just for a couple of years. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. So obviously that worked out. Why did you... Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how and when you decided to, like, book out to Nicaragua. And was it during all this time? Did you feel like you needed, even though you were doing the dancing thing and that helped give you some breathing room away from dentistry or whatever, is that why you kind of booked out to Nicaragua? Because you're like, you know what, I just need to keep really reinventing myself or burning other things down, or what happened there?
So there was another company that comes. So Unleashing Influence came out.
Okay, keep going.
Because what was happening was, to get Unleashing Dentistry noticed, I took to LinkedIn and started talking about what I knew about dentistry and niching and passion. And in a year, I went from 200 to 12,000 industry followers. And then people started to come to me outside of dentistry and go, "How did you do that? And can you actually do that for me?" So I started playing with other people's accounts, and I was like, can't make any promises. This might have been a unicorn experience, or maybe it is replicatable. Right. And what happened was it was replicatable. So that I started playing with people's accounts in 2019. And then the beginning of 2020, January 17th, 2020, Unleashing Influence became an official company with 2.5 full-time team members. 2 months later, pandemic hit, and my team came to me and they said, the world is burning down. If you need to let us go, it's totally okay. Everyone else is getting let go. And I said, buckle in. We're going to take this thing to the moon. And by 10 months into the pandemic, we had 14 full-time team members.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
Yeah, we took off exponentially. The dance company got slaughtered. The dental company got slaughtered because dentistry was shut down during the pandemic.
In person, yeah, right.
Exactly. So Unleashing Influence just took off. And then I decided in January 2021 to no longer see snowflakes. I promised myself 12 months, no snowflakes. Moved to Nicaragua.
I love that. And 5 days
after I arrived, Canada canceled all the tropical flights. So I got stuck for 3 months and decided to make the best of it.
Okay.
And I was here for almost 2 years. So
right. Yeah. I gotcha. Oh, that's so interesting. Well, gosh, I mean, that's fun to have that, I guess, what's the right word? That I think it's kind of an insight, actually, to treat yourself. Like you said, hey, you've been working, you've been pivoting, you were doing a lot, and you're like, hey, you know what? I don't want to see any snowflakes right now. I need a change of scenery as a way to, reward yourself, or keep motivating yourself. All right, so you get down there. So now I realize that you've been down there for 2 years. That's pretty interesting. What's cool about it is that you've been able to keep the business going, right? Though, so over this, and it's still growing, et cetera, right? You're still evolving and reaching people, which is cool. You're able to manage your team. Is your team mainly back in Canada, or are they kind of spaced out around the world? How's that work?
Well, there's more arson that has happened.
Oh, okay. All right. Keep going, man. I only discovered to scratch the surface last time we talked, I guess. All right, keep going.
So after I moved down here, I'd already sold the dance company, but I still had Unleashing Dentistry and I had Unleashing Influence, and I was working 100 hours a week, and I finally one day was like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting in paradise, but I'm working 100 hours a week. I'm sitting in an office. I'm not even enjoying paradise. What am I doing?
Right.
And I had this realization that I had created a monster that was working, but I didn't like it. So I decided to sell off the agency part of Unleashing Influence. So my 14 team members, sold them with the clients. I sold Unleashing Dentistry's potential completely and maintained Unleashing Influence as my own brand. And just decided last fall, I was just going to go narrow and deep into personal branding and helping people through masterminds, helping them to get through their pivots, leveraging their personal brand on LinkedIn. So that is all I do day in and day out. And I work with a half-time virtual assistant. And honestly, I'm making way more money than I ever have, even when I was a dentist, with what I've actually swapped to. So it has been a twisty way of getting to figuring out what I should be without a drill in my hand. Honestly, building all those other brands was me trying to figure out how I was ever going to contribute without doing surgery. And now I have finally pulled all the best pieces from all those brands that I built, from business coaching and dentistry to dance and teaching people movement to actually the LinkedIn and the personal branding side, and put it into one nice, tiny little package that has an interesting story behind it, but it's easy to understand to the marketplace what I do now.
Right. Okay. Wow. Okay. So I didn't realize that part. I still thought you had a larger team out there that you were working with. So that's cool. Okay, so those guys, or all those people, they were basically doing a digital marketing kind of firm thing, right? Connected to all this. I got it now. Wow. All right. So, that's quite a journey. Quite a lot of fires that were lit and stoked, and wow, that's a lot to absorb. Very interesting. Okay, so now you're in Nicaragua, and I think before we started, you mentioned that you're moving back to Canada soon. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I am at the end of the month.
Okay, and so what's prompting that now? You've spent enough time down there, or you're missing home, or you're like, it's going to be winter, I want to see snow now,
There was some pretty dark stuff transpired since I've been here, and I keep being reminded of it. And I went back to Canada 2 weeks ago just to get my bank cards activated, because Canadian bank cards, you can't activate them outside of Canada. So I've been using credit cards because I lost my bank cards the first month that I was here. So I've been using credit cards to take out cash, because everything down here is cash, and it's like a 29% premium to actually take money out on your credit card. So my friends tried to go to the bank and do it for me, and they were afraid they were going to get arrested, and they did not get arrested, but the bank told them, you can't do this. She has to come up. So I went up and got to go and hang out with my dance community, and realized, I could come back for 6 months, choreograph the season, do the big show, and build out the stories of what has happened in the last 2 years here, and put them on stage and get a lot of the stuff out, the darkness that has happened, and then decide from there whether I want to come back or spend time in other parts of the world. The lucky thing is I have this company that I do all my masterminds through Zoom, so I can be anywhere as long as I've got a great connection and my computer and a keyboard. So I'm not sure geographically what's coming next with my life, but that's where I'm at.
Right. Well, I love it, and that's a cool thing about how we can work these days. And it's cool that you're keeping your mind open to these possibilities and different changes that can happen, because as like everyone else knows, the world's just crazy these days and pivoting and moving. Things are moving fast. So I think having that mindset, having that outlook is pretty cool. I'm sure you'll enjoy your time back in Canada and see wherever your next travels might be. Like we were talking, I think before, when I first talked to you about travel, it's like once you start traveling, you sort of get this little bug of like, it just keeps making sense to keep discovering, keep immersing yourself in different places. Just because it's good for you, just in a holistic way, for your mind, body, diet, whatever it might be, At least it has been for me. But okay, so look, it's been great having you on the podcast. Before we get out of here, there's always a few questions that I want to ask people, and for you, I think I want to bring back the Reinvention game. That's what I called it the first time. So one of my recent guests, Robin Landa, we played it, and I'm not sure it's a game, but it's about looking into the personal 3 different types of reinventions that the podcast represents, okay? And that's technology, innovation, entrepreneurship or business, and personal reinvention. So the reason I call it a game is like, I want to hear the 3 ways that you've been reinventing yourself. And for all the geeks out there, or the people that go to, the cocktail parties have have nothing to say to anyone, maybe you can use this as an icebreaker. Okay, like to just walk up to someone and say like, hey, so what are you reinventing these days? You know, they might look at you funny, you know, but I think it's a way to kind of start cracking your mind open and keeping you open to change. So the first one is technology or innovation. So what are you reinventing right now along those lines? And it could be, you know, anything that comes to mind.
I have decided not to reinvent anything right now.
Oh, okay.
I spent the last 8.5 years on this path of reinvention after reinvention after reinvention, and I have now figured out what I really am meant to contribute to the world. And so next 5 years, you are not going to see me reinventing anything. I am going narrow and deep into personal branding, mindset with business, helping people to build out their offers at the highest level possible. So there is no innovation coming my way aside from on that topic matter and going deeper into it.
Oh, really? Okay, this is interesting. Okay, this is an unexpected answer, but I kind of like it though. So that's interesting. Okay, so I'm curious. I'm gonna write this date down and like you reach out to you next year to see see how you're really thinking, because well, I've just, you know, the more you get to know entrepreneurs, you kind of watch and see how they think, and then it's like there's always something, there's another itch that comes along, or they get antsy about something and they end up changing anyways, because that's kind of who they are in their core. But that's cool. I like that you're sort of have been self-reflecting and that you're like, you know what, I've been doing a lot of this stuff. It's time to really kind of just move ahead in this main vein. Okay, but I mean, you can still kind of reinvent or be adjusting things in this main vein, I guess.
Yes. There's still going to be, but it's not a new endeavor. Like I've built many different endeavors. Now this one is, let's go deep into this and let's become the best in the biz and know the most about this and be able to help the most people with it. That's my goal with that.
I got it. And so would you say it's the same thing for the entrepreneurship business part? I guess you really just reinvented that by jettisoning your team and kind of focusing on like, hey, I'm going to be more of a solopreneur for the moment, maybe with an assistant, and, you know.
So the entrepreneurship, there's going to be continuous learning. Like I run masterminds because I believe in being in a mastermind. I believe in buying high ticket programs and understanding what their roadmap is. So there's still going to be a ton of knowledge acquisition, but my way of delivering it is like I've gotten away from one-on-one and doing it for you. I teach people in those 90 days to pivot. Once they graduate, they can join the Badass Entrepreneurs Club, which is an ongoing mastermind where they continue to get sales skills and marketing and how do they keep building their personal brand higher and higher. So I'll be still acquiring knowledge to be able to bring more to them. But the entrepreneurship stuff, the model that I have now is the best model I've ever built. And it was working for me, and I can foresee it working for me into the future.
I gotcha. Very cool. And then, of course, on the personal side, you're moving back to Canada. So that's one little reinvention you got coming up here. Anything else you might want to mention that's like, hey, I'm going to change my diet, or anything else you got going on?
My goal is to actually never drink coffee or alcohol again.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
That's always tempting. People always pull me back. It's like, oh, just smell this. And I'm like, oh, I'll just have a sip of coffee. And then I'm back down the rabbit hole.
You're back, yeah.
But I feel like absolute garbage on it. And same with alcohol. Even having half a glass of wine, I feel like garbage. So my goal is when you check in on me next year, that it has been at least a full year. So we're saying today, it all stops.
Wow. And, really? Okay. That's a recent thing. Yeah, what I do with that is, and I kind of agree with you, from time to time, I just stop. I take breaks from coffee and alcohol. So that's kind of how I handle it. I like it, but if it's too much, then you're right. It just makes you feel like junk after a while, right? It doesn't have the effect you're looking for, and it just doesn't work out. Yeah, so I end up taking breaks through the year. I've never gone, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months is probably the longest I've gone cold turkey on both of those, but maybe someday I'll have that same mindset. But good for you, because that's cool. Yeah, you don't really need any of that stuff if you're happy with your life and you're doing what you need to do. And yeah, for sure, very cool. Well, Dr. Angela, it's been great having you on the podcast. If people are interested in learning more about unleashing their inner influence, working with you, or just watching, following your story, or whatever your newest businesses are going to be, how would they find you? How should they get in touch?
The best way is through LinkedIn. It's under Dr. Angela Mulrooney, and I do have a community on there that you can join called the Unleashing Influence Community, and I'll give you the link, Jim, so you can post that.
Oh, that'd be cool,
it's great for other people. There's other people on there building their personal brands. You get invited to exclusive events, like 10 people events, where you get to pick my brain for an hour about whatever you want. And so you get a lot of value out of that group if you are trying to move your personal brand forward.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm so glad we connected on this. This has been great. I've had a lot of fun talking to you, and I know everybody out there listening is probably getting a lot out of it. So thanks again. Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of. Hey, revolutionaries, if you enjoyed today's episode and today's guest, let them know by commenting on their Facebook page, finding their Twitter handle or Instagram feed, and letting them know you heard them on Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, and tell them what you got out of the episode, what you really liked, or how they inspired you. I know they would get a kick out of it and will help others find the same value that you found.